I'm not saying the American dream is dead, but I am saying the American dream is dying. And in this video, I want to share with you how me and my family decided to create our own American dream, even though it's not in the United States. Now, hear me out, because you may not be American, but everyone has a dream life that they want to build for themselves. And so I just want to share what it used to be in the past and what we were raised to believe could be potential of a life that we so desire and that we could build for ourselves. But unfortunately, as time has gone on, it has become more impossible to achieve that life than ever before. So how do we still achieve the life that we want of our dreams without having to sacrifice our entire lives to get there? And if we go back into the 1950s and 60s, we'll learn that it was a very simple life. This is when the American dream was, for the most part, well established. You were able to have a one-income household. Your children could go to schools that were incredible, that had great education systems. You were able to maintain your health care easily with very low cost to you and your income. You could easily have a beautiful home and a beautiful car without having to worry about going into too much debt. You could afford this entire life without having stress. That was the dream. You could also have investments that were paying you an annual income without having a second income in your household, like your spouse going to work. He or she could stay home and take care of the kids while you went out and returned with income. This was the life. The life was simple and the life was slow. You know, in truth, at that time, you didn't have the digital devices and all the technologies that we have today, the instant gratification of the world that we live in now. And so you didn't have Amazon dropping packages off at your home. You couldn't buy things online. You would essentially go to the store. You went outside when you wanted to play. You would enjoy the outdoors when you wanted things to do. The world that we live in today, most kids are playing video games for half their lives, and then the rest of it, they're having to work to create video games. This is just the world that we live in. And so things have definitely changed. But the truth is that just because it's changed doesn't mean that you can't still afford to create that dream life. Now, most people, what they're doing is they're creating their own dream by decentralizing themselves from that system. Now, I grew up to believe that the American dream was something I could achieve, and me and my wife decided to try it. We bought our own nice house. We lived in the nice neighborhood, in the nice town, and we put our kids in the schools at the very beginning that were the highest ranking in that area. We wanted that lifestyle. But what we noticed was that it was increasingly more unaffordable as we went deeper into that American dream lifestyle. We had to consume more debt, more personal liabilities, and we had to sacrifice all of our free time and essentially our lives in order to achieve that. Now, that wasn't the case in the 50s and 60s. You could sacrifice a portion of your life and enjoy all of that and still have time to vacation and be with your family. But today, you need to be at work 24/7, 365 days in order to have the same life that your grandparents had when they first started. Of course, anyone in today's world, you would say, well, if I was back in the 60s, I would not have the same benefits that I have today digitally. No, you can connect with anybody in the world right now on social media. You can watch videos and learn about things instantly that they could not do in the past. The world is different. There's no question about it. There are pros and cons, but the truth is that just because things have gotten much faster doesn't mean they've become more cheap. They've actually become more expensive. Let's go into what the world is like today. Why did it get to where it's at now? And how can we flip this American dream on its back and give ourselves the same lifestyle that our grandparents had, but yet in a different way? And so the first thing we have to talk about is, how did we get here? And the way we got here was simple. We mismanaged money. We came from generations that used to work hard to create success, and then they would save all their money in order to have these amazing things that I mentioned: the nice house, the nice car, the nice family, the nice life. We got into a society that became very materialistic and consumer of all of these products and services, and also started to take debt in order to buy these things. This debt has naturally progressed and inflated, and it has created bubbles in markets that we haven't been able to control. For example, in 2008, we got into a housing bubble, and that bubble popped. And eventually, that led to something called quantitative easing, which meant the government was going to start printing an infinite amount of money. And once you start printing money, there really isn't a way to stop printing money, because it's now the necessity to keep the markets going. And that's what we've seen for over a decade. And we continue to see it. In fact, we have printed more than 20% of the world's dollars in just the last 24 months, which means that we are hyperinflating our currency. Whenever you go back in history, any empire that has hyperinflated their currency has unfortunately suffered a demise. And because of that, we know that if we continue on this path of printing money, we are going to also ruin our empire and suffer a demise. Now, our currency is precious because it allows us to exchange value for something that we want or something that we need. But if that currency loses its value and loses trust in its value, then eventually we'll need more of that currency in order to buy things that we want and we need. And this is what's happening today. What used to be a property that you could buy for $30,000, today you're buying for $300,000 or $400,000. That's a significant difference in just 1 to 2 generations. This is why we are here today, and why most of our society is single and doesn't want to have children and can't afford to have a home and rent forever, and are over leveraged on their payments and have to work until they sleep and wake up again to go back to work. This is the society that we have constructed because we have overused leverage. And that leverage has led to bubbles, which those bubbles have popped and led to quantitative easing. The quantitative easing has led to dilution of currency, or what we call hyperinflation, and this hyperinflation has made everything else the consequence of this consumption. If we consumed less, like back in the day, at a slower pace, we would cause slower bubbles, which would last longer, and we could have even subside those bubbles and create other innovations through the growth of those bubbles that could ultimately spread the wealth, spread the leverage across other asset classes, other liabilities, other markets, other niches that wouldn't give us so much consumption of just one particular thing and explode it into oblivion where it has to be bailed out, like 2008's housing crash. So now that we know how and why we are here, well, let's talk quickly about what we can do to create our own American dream. Now, I want to modify this term. American dream is a very niche way of putting it, but the truth is, it's just a life dream, and you got to see it that way, because we are going into a world where we're so globally not just connected, but we're dependent on every other society in the world to get our food and get our water and get our clothing and get our essentials, that at this point, you should have a global plan in order to have that dream life that you so desire. And that's how me and my family view it. We see it as that if we want to have cheap housing, then we should go where cheap housing is located. But we should also look for that cheap housing in places that have still a high quality of life. One of the things we look for is, how long do people live in certain countries? Do they live longer than in the United States? Or do they have shorter lifespans? If they have longer lifespans than they have in the United States, then it's likely that that's a good place to live, because they might have more purity in their food, in their resources, and in their living. There might be less stress. There might be less consumerism. There might be less population. There might be less everything. But less sometimes is more in this equation. Now, the next thing is Medicare. or any type of medicinal or some type of medical benefits or services that your family needs, these things are also today provided pretty much anywhere around the world. Now, most people still have this mindset that in the 50s and 60s, the American medical system is the absolute best and there's nothing else out there that can compare to it. But today, there are many others in this society and in this world that compare to it, and you can go pretty much anywhere. In fact, most people leave the United States today to get access to top-tier health services and surgeries and all types of cosmetics, and they go other places in order to get those benefits. Whereas in the United States, it's so expensive to get just basic care that we've lost that privilege and that benefit. So going somewhere where not only do you feel safe, but also you can live right, that the cost of living is less, and ultimately that the medical system is good. May not be as good as some other places, but it's still good for what your needs are. That should suffice enough for you to feel comfortable in migrating to that country. Now, I like countries that are emerging markets, countries that are growing, that have low debt, but that have good quality of living, have good cultural benefits. There aren't a lot of countries that are like this, but I like a lot of countries that are neutral. So neutral territories are some of the best countries to go look at when it comes to living. For example, New Zealand, Australia, Singapore, right? These are places that are neutral. They have no impact in any wars of any kind. They don't have feuds. They are not supporting one side or another. They get the benefit of being a trade partner. They have very low debt, and they have good income coming in from their country, and they have very low population density. These are places that are really safe to raise a family, and they also have great education systems and healthcare systems, and they have good infrastructure. These are places that you might want to consider having the dream life that you so desire. Now, I'm not saying that this is for everyone, and you probably have family that you have in your radius that you don't want to leave behind by going and moving somewhere else. But what I would challenge you to say is that if you can go live somewhere else and have that amazing life and save up the money that you need to save up and make the sacrifice of being a little bit further away from that immediate family that you grew up around just for a few years, can it make the difference in you being able to save the down payment to buy the home next to your immediate family? Can it make the difference in getting you out of debt by being able to save faster? Can it make the difference by offsetting taxation or offsetting the high cost of living for you? For us, it made a whole lot of sense because we could take our real estate income and instead of splurging all of it in living in a California home or living in a Florida home, we decided to take it and build memories from it, things that we'll have for the rest of our lives, and use that to go live in beautiful places in different exotic parts of the world. There are so many places that you can live in that are super comfortable, that are very safe, that are culturally friendly, and that ultimately you have very much a small community of like-minded people that are just like you and just like your family, and that want to have great friendships, and they want to be close proximity to others that are just genuinely nice people. So take the chance, take the risk, make the investment, make a sacrifice. If you want to have the dream life that you so desire, you may have to leave your location. You may have to go back to those nomadic roots that we as humans were created from. And you might need to travel and go and explore the world a little bit just to see what else is out there. And if you see everything and then you decide, I really love this one place and I'm gonna make this place our home for at least the next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. And it saves you 30 or 40% of your income. It saves you taxation. It saves you, 20 years of saving money that you wouldn't have got in another country, like for example, the United States. Then you essentially created a cheat code for your life, and you were able to still benefit from that dream that your grandparents once told you about. And now you have it today. And that's what we did. We traveled to Bali. We live in Bali. We're gonna probably live in Australia soon. And we lived before that in South America. And as much as many people say, well, those are third world countries, or they criticize it, there are still many expats and people just like us that speak English and are cool and come from nice, good backgrounds and, you know, are obviously just like you, normal people, safe. We don't have any craziness in our family or no harm to bring to anybody. These are people you want to hang around with, and they exist in all parts of the world. So don't feel that the United States is the only Coca-Cola on the shelf. There are many other Coca-Colas out there. You just have never tried any of them. So you don't know what they taste like, and you don't know if you'll like them more. And I actually would say this. Most Americans are worried that they will like the Coca-Cola that is not the American-made Coke. They are worried about that. And that's why they criticize so heavily going and living in other countries, because there's no way you're not going to enjoy the beaches in Greece, or you're not going to enjoy the mountains in Italy, or you're not going to have an amazing time on the beaches in Bali, or that you're not going to have an amazing experience in the Gold Coast of Australia. You're going to have so many places to go and see and do things in, so many memories that you can create. But yet you choose not to because you think America is the only place that exists for this dream. Well, wake up, because there are many other places in the world that you can choose to have this experience and build this dream life. And it's happening around you faster than you know it. The more people you see go and live this life, the more likely you are going to want to do it yourself. So start taking action and take advantage that now is the time, and you just heard it. And maybe this is a sign for you to put it into action. Hey, thank you for listening to this video and for listening to what we did. And also, if you're interested in more of these videos, go check out one of these, and I'll see you soon.